I know being a real estate agent is not easy right now. You're grinding every single day. You're facing challenges. This is a tough market, and I feel the pain. I know exactly where you're at, and I'm right there with you. In this episode, I want this to be an encouragement to you. I want to encourage you to keep on going. Don't quit. Now is the time to grow and thrive, not the time to pull back. We're going to talk about the biggest challenges agents are facing today, and I'm going to give you some practical advice to keep you going and keep you motivated and staying on that successful side of your business. We're also going to be introducing a new segment today. I'm excited about it. We're calling it Ask Coach Neil. And TJ McGraw is going to join us each week to give me some tough questions. And this week we're going to be talking about what was it like when I first started? And are the challenges the same, different? Are they greater or worse? What was it like back when I started? And no, it was not in 1945. I started in 2002. So we're going to cover all of that in this episode. Stick around. Welcome to the Agent Rise podcast, where we celebrate that you are unique and one of a kind. Instead of asking you to do things that make you cringe, we help you create a clear, personalized plan that aligns with you. No more overthinking or wasting time, just a straightforward path to building a real estate business you love. Welcome, Risers. It's that time once again for the Agent Rise podcast. I'm your co-host, Neil Mathway, joined by Mindy Kesnick. Mindy, good to have you back. It's been a while, hasn't it?
It's been so long.
We set out for the summit. We had all these amazing episodes, but that meant that Mindy had a lot of time off. So not really. Time off.
Yeah, I've just been sitting around
waiting for the next
eating
episode.
bonbons.
Yeah, that's right. Well, today we're talking about how to help agents stay in this business. A lot are leaving this business. It's getting very challenging out there. And today we're going to talk about the challenges and the solutions to those challenges. And our first one that we feel that agents are leaving the business because it looks a lot easier than it really is, right? And when we get into this business, we see agents, it looks kind of glamorous. Maybe we watch some HGTV and we say, oh, I love houses and I love people and I want to be a real estate agent. This just looks really easy and glamorous. I want freedom, right? I want freedom. And they jump into the business and it is none of that. Am I right?
Oh, you are right. However, there was probably a 1 to 2 year period of time where it was sort of easy to some degree, because if you could get an accepted offer, you did not have to negotiate anything other than acceptance because there were no contingencies in the offer. So for a little while there, it did seem like it was an easier industry. It's just like anything, though. It has its ups and downs, and it is certainly at its current state, not an easy industry to be in or to be successful in.
Right. And I think, Mindy, you've seen it, in your career. You've built, we just talk about some like personal experiences here. I think agents that join you and work with you see where you're at today and think they can just jump into it. Right. And it's just going to be that way for them. But it's not. Like talk about like the where you're at today to where it was in the beginning and where they have to see it going.
Yeah, that's something that I've come to realize over the last several years of building a team, is that as a real estate agent, obviously we are marketers. What's that saying, Neil? We're marketers with a
Oh, what are you pulling out here?
There's a Madison agent that always says it. Like, we're not actually real estate agents, we're marketers.
Oh, yeah. So is it kind of like we're, real estate agents that happen to, or media companies that happen to be real estate agents?
Yes.
That kind of thing. That's the one.
That's a Mathway original, actually, isn't it?
That is. That's an old one right there.
So that I heard it from you.
Yes.
Anyways, and so as marketers, one of the things that we do is we make our jobs look really exciting and really easy and really fun and glamorous and lucrative and all of these things. But as I started bringing on brand new agents, what I realized is that I was making real estate look a little bit too easy, because agents would come in and they would expect to either have they would either expect to have the success or the ease or the clientele or a number of different aspects of my career, they kind of expected to just walk in and I would just give them my playbook and say, here it is, which I do offer that to my agents. But what they didn't understand is that they were jumping into a very late chapter. They were jumping into chapter 10 of, I don't know, probably a 20 or 30 chapter book. And so where I am now in real estate is not how it looked when I was in chapter 1, when I was a brand new agent like they are. And so to go from thinking you're coming into this industry where you're just going to be, making money and have clients and it's going to be easy and fun and it's going to look like my highlight reel, it's a really hard realization to understand how difficult the industry can be and how long it takes and how much work it takes to actually build up your own business.
That's it. And that leads us to the solution of this too. Like if this business just looks too easy and you get into it and you find that it's hard, which a lot of us do, we don't know where to turn. We don't know what direction to go in because there's so many ideas and there's so many ways to run your real estate business, but what one is congruent to you? And this is where we see agents really start to get it, is when they identify their clear plan that's congruent to them, and then they stay consistent with that plan, and the breakthrough always comes. So if this sounds familiar to you right now, you're listening to this episode and you're like, man, I got into this and I just got blindsided. Like I walked in and I thought this business was going to be easy. My mentor made it look easy. Everybody around me made it look easy. And I'm here and it is not easy. And it kind of reminds me of me when I started. I remember even crying on my way home, like, what have I done? I've sold my business and I'm now into real estate. And what have I done? This is hard. And so if that is where you're at, just trust us that if you have a clear plan that's congruent to you and one that you stay consistent with, you will find your way. And that's what we do here at Agent Rise. We'll tell you more about the Agent Rise Academy at the very end of the episode here, but this is something that you should look into because in boot camp, we will help you design that clear plan and you can get boot camp inside the academy. And again, the academy, $97 a month to get started. So this is an area where you can develop this clear plan that's congruent to you, stay consistent with that, and then you break through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is an area, Neil, that I've been working the Agent Rise program for probably 5, 6 years. I don't know. Time is escaping me. Probably at least 5 years. Yep. And I still find myself having to refine it because it is so easy to think that more is more. And it is just one of those things that less is more. And so I still, even with my own personal Agent Rise framework, am in a season right now where I am trying to even narrow it down even further and try to distract more of the noise, because that consistency in those 3 pillars is going to be how you see long-term success. But you have to work it every single day.
That's it. And I love that you're saying this too, that clear plan. You're even simplifying it even more, making it even clearer and more defined. And that's what works, right? Because it's not divided attention. You've got the focus, and what you focus on expands. The next reason that I think that agents are leaving the business is, truthfully, I think they're a little scared of the NAR ruling. And I think not necessarily the NAR ruling itself, but the changes that it's going to bring to the industry for some. I mean, it's going to be changes for everybody, but if you're an agent that has never signed a buyer agency before, and you're now learning that I need to sign a buyer agency whenever I go to work with a buyer, this could bring up a lot of fear. And this in a time when the market is already challenging and you're already maybe struggling to find your way. And then you hear this news and you just think about every buyer that you've worked with in the past, and maybe you haven't signed a buyer agency, or maybe you were practicing where you would sign a buyer agency right before you would go to write an offer. And you're just a little concerned of how you're going to present this to a buyer and get a buyer to agree to work with you for a commission. And that commission may or may not be paid for by the seller. And that brings up a lot of fear and has agents worried and afraid and possibly leaving the business because of it.
Absolutely. And this is, again, that same thing when I said that there were a couple years there where it was real estate, it was a little bit easier to be a real estate agent, at least comparatively speaking. This is one of those areas that it absolutely, like, you didn't actually need to know or understand the buyer agency agreement at all. So if you came into real estate during that time period, at least in our state, you just went out and showed buyers properties. And when you went to write your first offer for them, you had them sign the buyer agency agreement. And a lot of agents never even explained it to them. Their clients, they didn't read through it. They didn't necessarily even understand it. And to this day, I still see agents not fully understanding and grasping that that is a contract between you and the buyer. And it actually has nothing to do with the offer of compensation on the MLS, because it's between the buyer and the buyer's agent. And so if you were in that time period, it's understandable that you wouldn't feel comfortable now sitting down with buyers and having this conversation. But it's a change in our industry that is going to force agents to get to know their contracts a little bit better, especially on the buyer side, and now have these conversations. And you know what? Like, if we really look at this situation, it is 100% benefiting us as buyer's agents. Because I don't know about you, Neil, but there is nothing that I like less on the planet than running around showing houses to a buyer that's not loyal. And I don't have their loyalty and I don't have a signature from. Right. And this is really one of those game-changing situations in our industry that is going to let us say, like, sorry, I can't show you a property without this contract signed. Yes. So do you want to hire me or not? So I can understand why it's scary because it is new, I think, to a lot of agents, unfortunately. But it's also because there's this big issue, it also gives you kind of an out. Like, you can change the narrative with your clients and have this kind of quote unquote reason to kind of readdress it and to put together a new system around it.
That's it. And that's the thing is everybody in the industry is going to have to do it. It's going to be a little bit different in the beginning, but it's going to become part of the new normal. And for me, I started selling real estate back in 2002. We often joke it was 1945, but it was 2002. And all the way up until 2011 or 12, we always had to sign buyer agency in the first meaningful contact. So I used to have to say, hi, my name is Neil, sign here. So for somebody like me, I'm super used to this, right? Like, so it's actually going to be a good thing because we gotten lazy, right? We were out there showing buyers properties under designated agency in the state of Wisconsin, and we weren't signing buyer agency agreement until we were ready to negotiate. And once we began to negotiate, then we would start signing buyer agency. And now we're going to sign buyer agency before we even show them a house in that first meaningful contact. And this is going to be an adjustment for some agents, but for some others, it's not. And don't be afraid of it because the market is going to adjust to it. Everybody in your marketplace is going to have to adjust to this. It's going to be the new rule, and you'll get really used to it. And then from there, just get really good at understanding how to elegantly explain the three agreements. Real estate has three agreements. It's the offer to purchase, which is between the buyer and the seller. It's the buyer agency, which is between the buyer and the buyer's agent, and it's the listing agreement between the seller and the listing agent. And when you're talking with a buyer, you're going to talk about two of those agreements. You're going to talk about the buyer agency agreement and the offer to purchase agreement. The buyer agency agreement is going to put me to work for you today, and we're going to agree on this certain percentage here for me to represent your best interest. When we get to the offer to purchase, when we find that house and we get ready to write an offer on that house, we're then going to negotiate with the seller to see how much of that commission they are going to cover. And if they're going to cover it all, great, away we go. If they don't cover it all, we're going to have to negotiate a little bit, maybe increase the purchase price, maybe do some other incentives, some other things to help compensate for it. Or we're going to say we're not going to come to an agreement here. Let's move on. Let's find a different property, right? So the thing is I think agents are so concerned about how am I going to get them in the car when they've got to agree to pay me a percentage when the buyer doesn't even have, just has barely enough for their down payment. payment and their closing costs, they don't have enough to cover mine. So then how am I even going to help them? Right. And so you've got to be able to explain to them that, hey, we're going to sign this buyer agency agreement, but we're going to take care of actually what it's going to cost you and what you're going to have to contribute out of pocket when we get to that offer to purchase. And I think we're going to see in the marketplace, especially in areas where it's starting to turn more into a seller's market, that we're going to have sellers that are going to offer compensation with no problem because it's going to be needed to sell their house.
Yeah. It'll come full circle.
It will. It will. So just with all of this, just relax, right? Like just trust the process. Know that there's going to be changes. Those changes, just step into those changes, adjust to them. You'll learn the right scripts. You'll learn to be able to, the way to be able to elegantly explain the finances to the buyer, so that they understand it and they understand the process. And then you get to represent their best interest and nothing changes. So with this, I'm telling you, don't let this be a concern of yours. Stick with it. Gosh, how many different changes have we been through, Mindy, in our career? There's always adjustments. There's always changes. Just keep evolving.
Yeah. I remember FERPTA.
Oh my gosh.
We had to get FERPTA signed by everyone. That was like the worst.
Yeah. Thought the sky was falling. Right. Yep. And then it went away. No big deal. We just all adjust. We all adjust. Yeah. Well, the next one that we've got on the list here is the market changes. We've got a must-move market. We've got low inventory. We've got high interest rates. We've got a lot of things that make our market scary and challenging. But with all of that, we also have opportunity, right? There's plenty of opportunity in the market. So what are your thoughts, Mindy, about the market challenges, and how do you just keep on plugging? How do you keep going through this? Well,
one thing that I think really helps me is our weekly meetings, where we matchmake. It helps us on our team to stay positive and to keep looking for the opportunities and to kind of mastermind different ways to find houses. And the other thing that I've noticed is, since we've started doing this every week, is that a lot of times I'll have an agent on the team send me a house and be like, hey, would this work for that buyer of yours? And so now all of a sudden, instead of just me thinking about what house is out there for this buyer, and I feel like I'm alone on this island trying to find this needle in a haystack, I've got this team of people kind of that is on their radar, and we're all working together. And you don't necessarily need to be on a team to do this. If you're a part of a brokerage, you can do this with other agents in your brokerage. But that has been one thing that just keeps it allows me to see what's happening in other people's businesses, which feels like there's more. Versus just if we are focused on just the few listings that you have and the few buyers that you have, it can feel scarce. But when you start looking at all the other agents in your brokerage and all the buyers and sellers that they have, it's there's plenty. It only takes one.
That's it. And see, and this is it. This is where we get stuck, I think, as agents, when we have maybe a small pipeline, maybe of five to 10 buyers, and those buyers are not very active, or those buyers maybe even feel like they've thrown in the towel. So we stop looking. We stop thinking about them. And a lot of them come back around. And a lot of it is because opportunities change. We've got, down here in Florida, we're seeing inventory increase and we're seeing prices soften a little bit. And with that, there's big price reductions. So you got a buyer that was looking at a house before and it just wouldn't work. The numbers wouldn't work. The interest rate was too high. The price was too high, but then all of a sudden there's a $20,000 price drop and it changes everything. Right. And so there's certain opportunities that you can find in the market if you're looking for them. But if you're not, if you're just waiting and you're reacting and you're waiting for the phone to ring, it's not ringing. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think just we talk about this all the time, Neil. This is something that you just hammer home all the time, is you have to be open to the opportunities. If what you think about what is it?
What you think and feel,
you make real.
You got it.
And it's so true. And when we're constantly thinking about putting these deals together and finding the opportunities and seeing the houses that we didn't know were for sale, when we are constantly in that mindset, they come about. They really do. And so but it takes work. It's easier said than done. You have to decide that you're going to be in that mindset, and you got to stick with it every single day and get your engagements in. I tell my I tell my team that until I'm blue in the face, like engagements, engagements, engagements. Talk about these buyers that you have when real estate comes up. Like, oh, I'm really looking for this house here for this, and you'll be amazed at how you just start putting deals together.
That's it. Because not only are you combing the MLS and the for sale by owners and all of this, but you can start sending I have a buyer letters. You can start door knocking. You can get out there and find the property for your clients. And with that, not only do you find your client's property, but you also find other opportunities. It leads to more, right? So, and also too, if you focus on the lack, you're going to get more lack. If you focus on the abundance and the opportunities out there, you will begin to see it and they will start to unfold. There is a never ending source of supply and opportunity for you if you just look for it. And I've seen it in every market. I have agents that are absolutely flourishing and they don't even know that it's a tough market because they're so focused on their opportunities. And a lot of the opportunities that I see in the market is families moving closer, clients are moving closer to their family. We've got must moves that are job relocating and need to move. We've got seniors that need to downsize. We've got inherited homes that need to be sold. We've got a middle class that is getting squished right now with high inflation and just it's hard to pay bills. And there's people that need to downsize and move. And there's all kinds of things happening that are changing the market. And if you look for the opportunities, you will see them. But a lot of us just will look at the numbers overall and say, oh my gosh, look at where sales are this year versus last year. The whole MLS is down. Everything is down. I'm just going to be down as well. Instead of looking at this time as an opportunity and seeing seeing the opportunities and stepping into them. All right. So our last one on the list today is financial instability. And there is so much pressure on us as agents and as just humans right now in the United States, and the pressure of with inflation, with our cost of living skyrocketing, with the cost of running the business increasing. There's just a lot of pressure on us. And I think some agents just get to that point where they just can't do it anymore and they've got to go find something more stable. And it's sad. And there is ways out of this. But it is a reality that I'm seeing a lot of agents run into.
Well, and the competition is steep for those agents that want to stay in it. We're all trying to do our best and we're all trying to get as many listings as we are. So like you said, the cost of business is more. I mean, the cost of my professional photography has at least tripled in the last year or two. And, there's now there's Canva and there's all these other things that I think there's a lot of pressure on the industry there's all these shows like Selling Sunset out there that make us feel like we should have, it has to be this like crazy production in order to kind of keep up with the next agent. So the expenses are getting to be higher, like you said, and in some cases it seems like, again, the closings aren't as close together as they once were. But that is just like everything in this industry. That is a period of time. If you can just keep honing your craft, staying optimistic and open to the opportunities, and kind of like I said, I was doing, like narrowing in on and making sure that I am going all in the areas that I believe are going to be the way that I need to build my business to be the most congruent to me, and to put myself in a position where I am working with the clients that are the best aligned with myself. That's what I'm focusing on. I'm not focusing on all of those other things and everything that everybody else is doing. And I think that is one of the ways that you can kind of get through this period of time where the financial instability feels like it's really heavy.
Yes. And this, I think, is a point too where we've got to stay creative versus being competitive. And I think so many of us in this business are so competitive because we see our peers outperforming us. We get into that comparison trap. We know the comparison trap is the thief of joy. And we get into this negative mode that we're not enough, we're not performing enough, that we're not good enough, and that this business isn't for us. And the truth is the exact opposite of that. And instead, what you need to do is be creative and think of your business as a way that you're providing more value than the cash that somebody's paying you. And when you can put yourself into that light where you're providing more value than the cash that it costs to hire you, you'll always be moving forward. You'll always be advancing. You just need to stay in a good state of mind, be creative. And when you are creative, you're going to attract people. And also, I think in addition to being creative, you need to be grateful. Right? You need to really be in this place of gratitude where you are so grateful for where you're at and what you get to do every single day and who you get to serve. And then that leads to the excitement that I'm providing value, because deep down, that's what we're all wanting in life, is to provide value for people, right? That's why we got into this business in the first place. Absolutely. So you get into that state, that state of mind that you're grateful for your clients, that you're grateful for your business. It just brings your energy. I'm getting chills talking about it. It brings your energy up. And you stay in that state of mind all day long, and you're going to just attract all the business that you ever desire. And I think too many of us just get wrapped up in the negative. We get our focus. And I say it too, like if you got to watch your expenses right now. But if you focus on the lack, you're only going to get more lack. And if you just have that state of mind where I can't spend, I can't live, I can't do anything, then that's what you're going to get. So have that state of mind that I'm living in abundance and I'm growing, and just watch your business grow with it.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on one other thing that you mentioned, Neil. You said focus on being creative. And I just have to share a little testimony around that. Is, as you know, I went on this 12-hour walk recently. And of course, one of the things that I thought about a lot was work. And one of the things that came up for me was around my YouTube content. And I thought about like my dream client. And then because I was in this space where there was no social media, there was nothing in my ears at all, no music, no podcasts, nothing. It was just me and my thoughts. I actually took the time to find that creativity inside me. And the ideas just started to flow on how I want to grow my YouTube channel and what I want to talk about. Because otherwise, if we don't take some time, set some time aside to get quiet and just listen to our intuition, you're never going to find that creativity. Because what we all do to find creativity, quote unquote, air quotes, we go to social media, and that's not where your creativity lives. That's not where it is. It's inside. But we have to take the time, and you don't have to necessarily take 12 hours. That's a little extreme. But we have to take a little bit of time with no other outside influence in order to hear and to feel and to experience what really clicks for us as individuals. And I think that once you do that, not only will your business flourish, but all of a sudden you find purpose. You match your purpose with your business, and that is where the dream lives. Like that is living the dream, is when we find our purpose and we're able to insert it into what we do for work. The sky's the limit.
Now, today we talked a lot about the challenges that we have in today's market, but the question that's coming up on the Ask Coach Neil session here in just a little bit is, what are the challenges that I saw when I first started? And that was in 2002, not 1945, as we often joke about. But what were the challenges in 2002 versus today, and how do you navigate through those challenges and break through as an agent? Now, we talked so much about today about developing a clear plan that's congruent to you and one that is you stay consistent with. And we bring all of this to you inside the Agent Rise Academy. The real estate industry has been so good to me, not only allowing me to feed my family and serve clients, but also it has allowed me to design a career and a life that I love. I love this industry, and I want to do everything I can to help real estate agents grow and find the same success. So I've taken all of my frameworks, strategies, templates, and I put them all together on one website. It's called the Agent Rise Academy, and it gives you every tool you need to finding listings when inventory is down, or getting new leads on YouTube, or being successful no matter what the market conditions are. Maybe you're not ready for coaching, but you know you want to grow. Sign up for Agent Rise Academy for only $97 a month. Sign up now and you'll get instant access and see if it's as valuable as I'm saying. If it's not, let us know within 30 days and we'll cancel your access and issue you a full refund. Seriously, anytime in the next 30 days. Sign up now at agentrisecoaching.com/academy to get started today. And now we're excited to bring a new segment to the show. It's called the Ask Coach Neil segment. And there's nobody better to ask me these questions than TJ McGraw. So we're bringing on TJ McGraw, and welcome to the show, TJ.
Thanks, Neil. I'm super excited for this new segment. It's going to be such a great opportunity for listeners and fans of Agent Rise and fans of Neil Mathwig to really ask some questions that have been burning in their minds for a while. So what a great new outlet we have here. Let's get right into it. So the first question that we have for you is really about, you've been in the business for a long time. You've seen a ton of changes. I know you went through the crash in 2008, which was like Armageddon. I can only imagine. So like, what's the difference between then and now? Like, what changes have you seen? And maybe like, is it easier for agents now, or is it harder, or a combination of both? What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of both, because it's easier in some areas and much harder in other areas. And let me get to where I think it's harder. And because I think that's where most of us are at right now, is this is a must move market. And for many years of my career, it was a want to move market. I mean, I go back to the early 2000s where interest rates were great and people were wanting to move. We did a lot of move up buyers. We had people that had houses that they wanted a bigger house and they wanted to move into move up. And in today's market, that's just not the case, with interest rates being where they're at compared to what most have. If they're sitting with a 3% interest rate, they're not excited to go out and get a 7, 8, or a 9, right? So they're not moving unless they have to, and it's a must move market. That's where it's gotten harder. But where it has gotten easier is our ease of doing transactions. Back in the day, we didn't have DocuSign, and I had to get everything signed. I had to go there and drive there. We drove everywhere. And that was much harder. Also, for advertising's sake, I didn't have social media to advertise on. Everywhere I advertised, I had to pay to be there. And so that's where it got harder. And in today's market, that's where it's much easier, right? We can just use social media. We can, there's so many different ways we can reach people for free in this market. And so that's what I like about, that's where it's gotten easier.
I didn't even think of marketing. That must have been very different, because I didn't, all I knew is social media. I started out with Facebook ads very early on in my real estate career. Like, what's the weirdest place that you ever like put an ad or ever marketed?
Oh yeah. Well, I think back where the marketing really happened and where it really got going for us was print advertising. So we had all of these different home magazines, different, the real estate book and all of these different magazines, and we would run these full ads in it. And there was agents that weren't even getting results with ads back in the day. So then we started doing call capture systems. So we had the 1-800 number pre-recorded information line. So you'd see this house and it would make you want to learn more. It was click worthy, right? Nice. It had a photo, it had a little bit of a description, but it did have the price. It did have all the details. So people wanted to call and get the details. So they'd call and listen to the 1-800 number. And then we had caller ID on that. And we knew of of all the calls that came in. And then if they wanted more information, they had to press 0 on the call, and then that would go right to our cell phone. So that was a state-of-the-art program that we were running back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It truly was. And we would generate about 100 leads a month from it. It was amazing.
I am old enough to remember Movie Phone. If you remember Movie Phone, where you dial the number and you get the movie times, and then
Oh, right. Yes. Hold on. It's about to come up, right? Yeah. Our movie that we want to watch.
Phone, yeah. But so that's it's such a different time. The advertising was different. You had to drive around and get wet signatures. I mean, there wasn't such a thing as e-signing. So wet signatures everywhere. I can't even imagine. I don't know if I could do it without DocuSign. I really don't, because it's like driving around and I've had people from all over, and even like mailing. Like, so did transactions take longer back then when you first started?
It was it wasn't that it took longer. It was that it just it was harder to get things done quickly. You always had to make sure you allowed 2 days. Like binding acceptance was usually 2 or 3 days, because you had to allow enough time to get the signatures. I also got really techie back in the day and went and bought 3 fax machines, and I give my clients a fax machine if they lived out in the country where it was too far away for me to buzz over and get a signature. So during our transaction, I gave them, and of course it had my brand on it. Yeah. We had them stickered and everything. Neil Mathwig on them, but we gave fax machines to our clients, and that was a way, because otherwise I was spending. I mean, I was in the car all day long. I was driving 40, 50, 60,000 miles a year, because I was just every little thing. If we needed an amendment signed or needed anything done, I had to get in the car and go do it, or they had to come to my office, which it was always, I wanted to provide the best service, so I always went to them. But I mean, it was, we'd leave stuff at the front counter for somebody to stop in and sign and do things like that. But it was always just kind of waiting around, and then you'd have to wait for the stuff to come in on a fax machine too. There was no notification that there was a fax in, so you'd run to the office and see if their fax came in. Nope, didn't come in yet. So you'd go back out, and you're always looking for the fax, right? So I mean, all of this everything just took much more time, and it was harder, right? It was harder to work according to that. So Grandpa
Neil's stories about back when we had fax machines back in my day. You were innovative with the tools that were available at the time. I never would have thought of that. I mean, maybe I would have, who knows? But to have to buy a few different fax machines, way cheaper than maintenance on your car, driving 70,000 miles, way more efficient than trying to connect and wait for somebody to come into the office. That's innovation right there. So that's something that hasn't changed. I know this is Ask Neil, but I'm just going to throw that in there. Like, you still, I think to have that competitive advantage, like, innovation still needs to be like front and center on things. And that's just a great example of, like, you kind of made like a rudimentary DocuSign by giving your clients a fax machine to use. That's just so cool. I just love that story. That's pretty neat. I didn't know that. I didn't know you did that. I learned something here about you today. So that's pretty cool. But I think the innovation is certainly key there for sure.
That's the classic. So one other thing made it much more difficult today is the number of transactions versus the number of agents in the industry. And I think we're starting to see that number come down, the number of agents. There's agents leaving the business. And I think that the agents that are all in and are going to really, really, focus on their business, they're going to be just fine. But it is one of those things that does make it more difficult. And I think back to the days where we had, there was so few agents in our market and there was so many transactions. They're just the ratio was completely different than where it is today.
Yeah, I hear that. Including me, there's 2 agents that live in my cul-de-sac, and there's only 3 houses. There's only 3 houses in my cul-de-sac, so 2 out of 3 agents in my cul-de-sac out of the homes there. So yeah, it's definitely.
And I see that changing too. I see that changing right now in these times. And I also see the must move and the want to move changing as well. There's going to be people that are going to want to move. They're going to release that, let go of that interest rate. And there's going to be a want to move market. I remember during the recession where we were sitting there with all that inventory. I never, ever in a million years thought it would churn. And when it churned quickly. And there was all of a sudden abundance of opportunities, both buyers and sellers, and deals were easy to put together. So I believe that it'll churn. I just think where we're sitting right now, it's hard. It's about as hard as it can be.
I'm gonna ask you a provocative question. Maybe it's not that provocative, but it's a question I think that it seems to always come up because the fear mongering media loves to talk about it. The crash. You were an agent during the crash. And I know if you've been a fan of the show for any length of time, you know Neil's story, lost some money in the crash and all that. The question I have for you now is, what's the difference between now and back then, like leading up to the crash, as opposed to where we are now? Because people still talk about the crash is coming, it's another bubble. And it's just, for me, if you might share this opinion, I guess that's why I'm asking the question. It just seems like a lot of fear for clicks and fear mongering for ratings and video watches. Like, what's your thought? Like, where are we in the market now as opposed to where we were back then? And like, what's the difference?
Yeah, I think right now we're in a reverse. Like it is back then we had way too much inventory and not enough buyers. Now we've got too much inventory, not enough inventory, and too many buyers. Now the buyers are starting to pull back, and in some markets the buyers have really pulled back and the inventory has started to climb. I think that a tight market with no inventory is worse than a market with a lot of inventory and like the recession inventory. Like when we were in the recession, we had 48 months of condo inventory, 24 to 30 months of residential inventory. Like there was just so much inventory and nobody buying it that it was horrible. It was really, really hard. You didn't know if you were ever going to sell a listing. You didn't know if your buyer was ever going to buy a house. You would go show a buyer 100 houses before they would pick one out because they had so many options, right? So it was a lot of work. It was a grind and there was fewer transactions. We're in that same exact boat today, but just in the reverse of it, right? We don't have enough inventory. We've got too many buyers and we have a hard time getting people into properties. So, but what I've always learned, and I've seen both of these markets, is that it doesn't last forever. And the market will change. The market will shift. And I'm really surprised that it hasn't yet. I've been thinking that it was going to shift by now. And I'm surprised that it has. And you're starting to see it happen in other markets. And so I think over time, we're going to start to see more inventory come. And I'm surprised that it's not here already. And I'm seeing some markets soften, but there's some markets. I mean, back in Madison, Wisconsin, I mean, we got no inventory and it's tight as can be. Down here in Florida, where I live now, it's the opposite. We've got inventory down here. We got 6, 7, 8 months of inventory down here.
Yeah, I'm in Atlanta, and it's the same here as Madison, where there's just not enough homes for sale. But then there's pockets of like if you get a little out of the city and get a little more rural, it's like night and day compared to the market closer to the city. So I totally get it. Well, this is awesome. I think it was a good first Ask Coach Neil segment.
This
is great. I'm looking forward to making this a regular part of the show. And man, the people's coach, as always. Thanks, Neil.
Let's go. I love it. Let us know what you think of this segment in the comments below. If you've got a question for Ask Coach Neil, put that in the comments as well, and we'll make sure we get that on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Agent Rise podcast today. I hope that this episode helped you see the possibilities in today's market. There is a lot of challenges, and it is really hard on agents, but if you focus your attention on the opportunities, you will find them. You have a clear plan that's congruent to you and one that you stay consistent with. There is no doubt in my mind that you will succeed. Thanks so much for listening. Hope you have a great day. And like always, remember to be the reason somebody smiles today.